The world has been shaken by spacequakes ever since the largest one recorded in Eurasia that claimed the lives of 150 million people and obliterated the area where it occurred. Japan was no exception to this, but people eventually returned to their normal lives amidst the constant threat of spacequakes occurrence. Among those is Shido Itsuka, who lives with his energetic younger sister, Kotori. One morning, they head to school after hearing news of a minor spacequake that took place recently, and they both promise to meet at a nearby family restaurant, oblivious to the fact that someone is stalking him. Upon heading to Raisin High School, Shido meets that stalker, who is introduced as the class genius, Origami Tabichi. Soon, a spacequake emergency alert was announced throughout the metropolis, prompting the people to undergo evacuation procedures assisted by the latest technology. Before long, much of the population is safe underground. However, Shido discovers that Kotori's GPS location is still at the family restaurant. Afraid for her safety, Shido goes out to get her, but on his way, he is swept away by a spacequake that rendered much of the buildings around him into rubble. In the middle of the crater caused by the spacequake, a girl appears dressed in a lavishly decorated armor. The girl in purple armor confronts Shido, asking him if he will kill her. Before Shido could answer her, several flying units swoop down, with the one in the middle aggressively attacking the mysterious girl using missiles. However, the armored girl wields her blade and nullifies the attacks against her. Not too long after that, an attacker came down to fight her, and she and Shido quickly recognized each other, the latter turning out to be none other than Origami Tabichi herself. Soon, Origami prepares to fight the girl in purple armor using an energy sword, and the battle unleashes a powerful shockwave that ultimately knocks Shido out. Shido soon finds himself being monitored by a lady in military attire named Rain Murasame. Rain tells Shido that he is aboard the Fraxinus, the vessel of the Ratatosker, after having fallen unconscious in the battle. Rain discovers that Shido is asking too many questions than what she can handle, so she takes him to the bridge, where Shido discovers that the captain of the Fraxinus is his younger sister Kotori. As Kotori explains the situation about the mysterious girl earlier, whom she calls a spirit, Shido notices that Kotori seems to have a completely different personality than before. Kotori simply shrugs it off, and she proceeds to explain what a spirit is, among other things. Kotori explains that spirits are otherworldly beings who create spacequakes upon arriving on Earth, regardless of their will. Secondly, the ones who attacked the spirit earlier are the AST, or Anti-Spirit Team, a task force with duties to combat spirits who manifest on Earth. Thirdly, there is a way to defeat a spirit without killing it, and Shido is the person they need for this. Kotori asks Shido to return to his normal life. However, Shido demands more of his questions to be answered, to which Kotori complies to. Kotori reveals that she actually left her phone at the family restaurant shortly after parting with Shido. Presently, they are currently 15,000 meters above sea level, at the sky above the void zone created by the spacequake earlier. The day after that, Rain Murasame joins the faculty of Raisin High School and makes quite an impression as she falls asleep while introducing herself as the new physics teacher. Shido later confronts Rain and Kotori about this and the fact that Rain transformed the biology room into her personal laboratory. Rain thinks that it is a good idea for someone from Ratatosker to watch over him, while Kotori has already done something about her middle school education. Soon, Kotori asks Rain to give Shido a look at the training module he would use for preparing himself as the newest weapon against the spirits who manifest on Earth. As soon as the module finishes loading, Shido discovers that the training module is a visual novel designed for him to learn how to make a spirit fall in love with him. Meanwhile, Origami meets up with Shido and confronts him about their unexpected encounter during the battle with the spirit the day before. Origami tells Shido to forget about the events that happened between her and the spirit. Shido soon asks about the spirit, and Origami tells him that she has to deal with them as she was orphaned after a spirit killed her family 5 years ago. After a sleepless night clearing the gouge given to him by Kotori, Shido heads to school. During the day, he visits the physics preparation room, where he almost enters a rather intimate scene with Rain, although it is actually to install an invisible earpiece to his right ear. Soon, Kotori arrives and announces that stage 2 of his training will start shortly. And this second stage, which requires practical application, Shido must try to make his teacher Tamie fall in love with him. Shido clearly struggles in this exercise. Not only it involves making someone fall in love with him, but it also involves his teacher. Regardless, Kotori urges him to push through, as it would show how he would fare when spirits become his target. Shido first tries out complimenting Tamie's attire, but Rain soon guides Shido into using sweet talk that she thinks is effective against a 29-year-old like Tamie. The plan worked, although Rain underestimates Tamie's reaction to getting married to someone of Shido's age. Fortunately, Shido manages to get away from Tamie, although he runs right into Origami, catching a glimpse of her white panty in the process. Kotori, despite knowing Origami's true identity, decides to use her for Shido's training, and again with Rain's guidance, Shido tries to woo Origami. This time, it seems that it works like a charm, but Shido's embarrassment over this situation ends up with their supposed date becoming a reality. Soon, a spacequake emergency is sounded throughout the school premises, and Kotori tells Shido to retreat to the Fraxinus because the spacequake is detected to appear at Raisin High School itself. Hours later, Shido is redeployed to the school premises, which were now utterly destroyed due to the spacequake. Kotori soon briefs Shido about his solitary role in dealing with the spirit that he had met before, codenamed Princess, since the AST, Origami included, is poorly equipped for indoor combat. After a short pep talk followed by an introduction of her crew, Kotori leaves a rather nervous Shido to proceed on his mission. Shido is able to approach the spirit, however, the spirit rejects the notion of listening to him. And even with the assistance of the Gouge-style analysis team of Ratatosker, Shido remains close to danger. Luckily, the spirit recognizes Shido as the guy she met before, and Shido uses this chance to talk to the spirit while assisted by Ratatosker. However, Ratatosker seems to make things worse for Shido, as their decisions only provoke the spirit into attacking Shido. Eventually, Shido decides to act by himself, and he declares that he may not be interested in whatever they would talk about, but he is determined to not reject her. At that instant, the ruthless spirit has a change of personality and childishly rejects Shido's serious statement. However, she eventually warms up to Shido as she considers him to be the first human she has had a conversation with. Shido soon discovers that the spirit doesn't have a name to call herself, so the analysis team suggests the name To, after getting ideas from various sources around the world. Unfortunately, the spirit doesn't like the name, so Shido christens her Toka, naming her after the day of their first encounter on April 10th. Toka seems to approve of her new name and smiles in response. Suddenly, a hail of gunfire rains down on Toka from above, which Shido barely evaded if not for Kotori's swift warning. Toka advises Shido to move away from her to avoid getting caught in the crossfire, but Shido strongly refuses and asks her to talk with him. Toka eventually complies with Shido's request, and the two sit down in the wrecked classroom, ignoring the gunfire from the AST outside thanks to Toka's barrier protecting them. During the conversation, Toka reveals that she doesn't know much about herself and the reason why she suddenly appears on Earth, ending up getting attacked in the process. Meanwhile, Kotori takes this chance when Toka is calmer than usual for Shido to make his move. With the jeering of the Ratatosker ringing in his ears, Shido decides to go with their plans. Meanwhile, the endless hail of fire from the anti-spirit team comes to a halt as they discover a civilian with the spirit. Upon recognizing who this civilian is, Origami swoops in to confront Toka. Origami's presence quickly reverts the spirit's mood into pure aggression. Toka summons her weapon Sandalphon and slashes at the two. Origami manages to survive the encounter with Toka that night. She was given a short sermon by her superior about being reckless in her duties before being taken to safety. Shido is unharmed as well, although upon his return to the ruins of Raisin High School, he is still having second thoughts about what happened the day before. Soon, a familiar voice calls out to him, and Toka emerges from behind him, expecting Shido to fulfill what he has promised her. After following Shido's advice to change into a more accepted set of clothing, Raisin High School's uniform, he and Toka head out to their next destination. As Toka indulges herself with different kinds of food, from soybean bread to hot dogs, Toka tries to determine what exactly is a date, and which of those things she ate is the date Shido is talking about. Shido tries to clarify things for her, but the infinitely inquisitive spirit continues to roam the city for anything that piques her interest, much to the sorrow of his wallet. While in the middle of the spirit's gluttonous adventure, Shido asks Toka why she left after the fight with Origami the day before, and she replies that she disappeared to another world, falling asleep afterwards. Meanwhile, Origami is seen watching the two from the shadows. Thanks to the vouchers he receives from a chance encounter with Tanamachi, Shido manages to afford to take Toka to a rather expensive restaurant. Shido is surprised to discover that several of the employees inside are actually people from Ratatosker, with all of them going undercover to monitor Toka's emotional levels. Kotori is no exception to this. After suggesting this 1-2 meal, which Toka single-handedly consumes, Kotori tells Shido to head to the nearby bridge. After Toka's feast would be the start of the real date. It turns out that the other crew of the Ratatosker converted a nearby residential area into several food booths, and Shido and Toka are treated to an all-expenses-paid promo. Meanwhile, Origami, who has been stalking them around town, has already sorted out deployment orders for the AST. Toka continues to sate her bottomless stomach as she consumes takoyaki, okonomiyaki, burgers, ramen, sushi, and everything else prepared by Ratatosker for her. And soon, Toka takes Shido to their next destination, hands clasped together. Toka and Shido soon find themselves winning the grand prize in a raffle booth handled by Mikamoto, and the prize is a trip to Dream Park. Shido wonders what this Dream Park is, but as soon as he gets an idea, he asks Toka to leave with him elsewhere, as the dream park resembles a love hotel. Meanwhile, Origami suits up into her CR unit and prepares to pursue the two. The Ratatosker members soon return to the Fraxinus to assess the current situation. Although there are some who fail miserably in their respective mission, a particular catcher machine filled with bread-shaped plush toys suddenly takes Toka's attention. However, she is not able to get the tasty-looking plush bread. Fortunately, it took a team effort from Shido and Toka to get the plush bread. The rain soon subsides, and the pair go to a nearby playground to rest. Toka tells Shido about the enjoyment she had during their time together, but she still does not know what a date is. Shido finally explains that a date is when a boy and girl go out together and have fun. Based on Shido's definition, Toka concludes that they had an outstanding date. Meanwhile, the AST closely watches as the spirit named Toka manifests herself without a spacequake occurring. Although faced with an unusual scenario, permission to use sniping weapons has been granted. Although overjoyed by the date they had and the discovery that the world is a fun and nice place to live in, Toka realizes that she has been destroying this world through her manifestations. Shido refuses to believe that Toka does not deserve to stay on Earth, and he assures her that she can stay on Earth for good, even if the rest of the world rejects her. Shido holds out his hand towards Toka. However, for a split second, he senses a threat approaching fast. After pushing Toka aside, Origami takes the shot at Toka. The plush bread, along with a portion of Shido's torso, is obliterated in an instant. The sudden turn of events comes like a flash to Toka, but as soon as she sees Shido's bloody corpse on the ground, she finally accepts the world's decision to reject her. Upon summoning her astral dress Adonai Melech and her angel Sandalphon, she unleashes her ultimate weapon, the Halvan Helif. The AST scrambles into retreat as the Halvan Helif cleanly slices through a nearby cliff. Meanwhile, Origami, still frozen in shock after firing upon her classmate in Raisin High School, sits helplessly in front of a raging spirit. Meanwhile, Ratatosker finds itself in a similar crisis as well. With a rampaging spirit, a space-time quake alert has been issued. Soon enough, a burning flame envelopes Shido's wound in a flash. A split second later, there's no trace of the fatal wound he received. Kotori then pushes through the plan to retrieve Shido and to calm the raging princess. Origami is deafened by the realization that she killed a human, while Toka is blinded by seething rage towards Shido's killer. Origami, helpless in fighting a powerful spirit, succumbs to her imminent fate. However, Toka's attention is diverted to something flying behind her, Shido in the flesh. Toka is overjoyed to see Shido alive. However, she tells Shido that her final sword is reaching its critical limit and the energy it holds must be released. Kotori soon contacts Shido and reminds him of the things she taught him regarding saving a princess. Shido sealing Toka's powers with a kiss. And she kisses Shido instead. As a result, all of the remnants of her spirit form dissipated, leaving behind a stark naked Toka who keeps her body close to keep him from seeing everything. Although embarrassed, Toka asks if Shido would take her again for a date. Upon hearing Shido's affirmative response, a warm smile emerges from the spirit's lips. While running through the rain, Shido sees a little girl playing around in the shrine before she trips and falls. Coming to help her up, the girl backs away from Shido, seemingly afraid of him. Shido is confused, but he notices a puppet on the ground. At school, Toka has baked cookies and argues with Origami over who made the superior sweets for Shido's palate. In order to appease both girls, he tries both cookies and compliments both equally, but the two continue to argue over whose cookies are better. The next day, while on his way to school during another rainy day, Shido passes by the shrine from the day before, and he remembers encountering the little girl before continuing on. The girl's puppet is then seen peeping out from one of the trees as he leaves. Later at home, Shido finds Toka inside the bathroom and is knocked away. Upon asking Kotori why Toka is in their house, he learns that Toka will be temporarily living here since he has sealed her powers. Kotori and Rain explain that it is also training for Shido, as he still has to assist in sealing more spirits. Kotori then tricks Shido into replacing the light bulb in the bathroom, causing Shido to catch Toka inside and be knocked away again. Later, Shido is forced to take the first bath by Kotori, whom he fails to bribe into going first with special bath bombs. At first, he finds that Toka is not there, but Shido later realizes that Kotori had arranged for him to enter first so Toka would unknowingly head into the bath next. Upon finding Shido inside, an embarrassed Toka begins to comically drown Shido. Later at school, both Toka and Origami once again fight over who gets to sit next to Shido during lunch. Later, a spacequake alarm sounds off during their class. Tammy advises the students to proceed to the safe shelter as usual. Confused, Toka asks what is happening so Shido explains to her the situation. Rain arrives and knowing what he needs to do, Shido asks Tammy to look after Toka as he and Rain leave. As Kotori has her crew zoom in to get a visible image of which spirit it is, Shido is shocked to find out that it is the little girl he encountered yesterday. Kotori is surprised that he met the spirit, codename Hermit, already, and even more upon finding out that he met her without any spacequake alarms going off. Kotori then tells Shido about Hermit, telling him that she is passive rather than aggressive or hostile like the other spirits. At that moment, the AST squad arrives and begins opening fire on the passive spirit, at which she immediately tries to flee from them. The AST then loses sight of Hermit, but the Fraxinus crew is able to find out her location at a closed mall. Shido ventures through the mall and eventually encounters Hermit. Upon being advised by Kotori on what his first response should be, a reluctant Shido eventually remarks that he is just a passerby, causing the puppet to laugh. Shido introduces himself, and the puppet restates their name to be Yashinon. Shido then asks if the name belongs to her or the puppet, which causes Yashinon to hysterically wonder what he meant. The hostile reaction causes Shido to immediately correct his previous question. Meanwhile, in the school's shelter, a very worried Toka wonders why Shido would leave during a spacequake. Tammy replies that she doesn't know the reason but tries to reassure her that Shido will be fine. To the teacher's surprise, Toka is already gone, having run off to look for Shido. Outside the mall, Origami and Ryuko await for Hermit to exit. Ryuko wonders about the coincidence of a girl, who resembles the spirit princess, transferring specifically to Origami's class in Raisin High. Back inside the mall, Shido tries to warn Yashinon about the jungle gym being dangerous until she falls, causing her to land on Shido and their lips touching each other. Yashinon then gets up, with Shido apologizing for what just happened. Kotori then alerts Shido of something urgent, and when he asks what it is, he is surprised to see Toka standing just near them. Toka then angrily asks Shido what he just did, and she then angrily remarks at him for making her worry just to see another girl. Kotori then warns Shido about Toka's current mental condition and that her spirit powers are starting to return to her. When Shido asks what he should do, Toka confronts Yashinon, and the latter creates a misunderstanding by telling Toka that Shido has gotten tired of her and decided he likes Yashinon more than her. Shido tries to explain, but Toka interjects him when Yashinon continues to taunt Toka about Shido liking her more than Toka, which provokes Toka to grab the puppet and demand those words be taken back. Yashinon, the little girl, then gets up and asks Toka to give her back the puppet. Shido is then briefed by Kotori that the mental condition of Hermit is starting to decrease rapidly, prompting Shido to ask Toka to give the puppet back to Yashinon. Yashinon summons sharp icicles to pour down on Toka. Fortunately, Shido is able to move Toka out of the way in time. Yashinon then tears the place apart before leaving, but is spotted by the awaiting AST and prompts them to open fire on her. Sadkiel then conjures up a sudden burst of snow to erupt, allowing Yashinon to escape in the ensuing chaos. Back with Shido, he asks Toka if she is alright. Toka responds that she is fine and demands that Shido leave her alone. At the Itsuka residence, Shido knocks on Toka's room, asking her to let him explain himself. However, Toka refuses due to still feeling upset over what happened before. Meanwhile, at the local shrine, Hermit stands silently alone with her puppet missing. Later at a diner, Rain asks Toka what's the matter before guessing that it involves Shido and the little girl. Toka refutes that it does not concern Shido, but Rain still assumes that he may be involved. Somewhere in the city, Shido, having gone grocery shopping, walks back home and takes an alleyway as a shortcut, but to his surprise he finds Yashinon looking for something on the ground. Yashinon then runs to Shido, who then realizes that she is looking for her puppet. Yashinon nods, confirming Shido's realization. Back at the diner, Toka expresses that she does not care who Shido is with. Back with Shido, he figures out that Yashinon had lost her puppet when she fled from the AST the day before, reporting to Kotori about this issue. Shido then tells Yashinon that they are ready when she is ready, but the little girl reveals to Shido that her real name is Yoshino and that the puppet they are looking for is Yashinon. Shido and Yoshino continue to search for Yashinon in the rubble of the mall until Yoshino's stomach begins to growl. Shido asks her if she is hungry, which she quickly denies until her stomach groans once again. At the Itsuka household, Shido prepares a meal for Yoshino, telling her that she must care about Yashinon a lot. Yoshino then says that Yashinon is both her best friend and personal hero. Shido asks if there is something wrong, but Yoshino says that nobody has said that before to her and thanks Shido. Kotori sarcastically comments on what Shido had just said. After eating, Shido asks Yoshino why she never fights back against the AST. Yoshino responds by saying that she does not like violence or being afraid. Yoshino then says that people must hate someone like that. After explaining, Shido pets her head and proclaims to Yoshino that he will protect her and find Yashinon. Shido then apologizes for the incident between them yesterday but then tries to kiss her to seal Yoshino's power. However, Toka arrives trying to apologize to him and catches both him and Yoshino, much to his dismay. Later, Shido visits Origami, with Kotori confirming to Shido that she had taken Yashinon during the aftermath. Shido then reaches Origami's room, and when he rings the doorbell, it suddenly swings open and he is surprised to see Origami wearing a maid's outfit. Inside, after a rather awkward moment just to make Shido call her by her first name instead, Origami takes a shower, giving Shido his chance to look for Yashinon. After looking through almost every corner of her room, amidst very scandalous and suggestive knickknacks, Shido is able to locate and retrieve the puppet. Just at that moment, Origami finishes her shower and goes to meet Shido wearing just a towel, to Shido's complete embarrassment. Shido then asks Origami to promise him that she won't hurt good people, telling Origami that he knows she is a good person as well. However, Origami reminds Shido that, even if they may be good, the spirits are still the cause of the spacequakes. At that moment, Origami's phone rings, prompting her to leave immediately. But before she can, Shido requests for Origami to stop attacking Yoshino if her powers give out. Somewhere in the city, Yoshino is being chased and attacked by the AST. As Ryuko opens fire on her, Yoshino summons Sadkiel, causing the area around her to freeze as the AST continues firing at her again. However, this time she counters by freezing the protect territory of the two members, leaving only Origami and Ryuko to chase after Yoshino. As she retreats from them, Yoshino hears Shido calling out to her. From afar, Toka sees that Shido is in danger, so she tries and fails to summon Sandalphon. After several unsuccessful attempts, Toka is finally able to summon her angel just in time to protect Shido from Sadkiel. Yoshino then retreats once again, with the AST on her tail still. Origami then tries to finish Yoshino off, but she is able to break free using her angel. Shido tells Toka that he had promised Yoshino that he would do whatever he could to protect her. However, he cannot do it on his own, so he pleads with Toka to help him. Touched by Shido's words, Toka decides to help him. As Toka distracts them, Shido arrives near the blizzard. A very concerned Kotori contacts him. She warns Shido that it could be fatal if he goes through the barrier without any sort of protection, even with his regenerative power. Shido jokingly comments on Kotori's concern for him. Inside the blizzard dome, Yoshino cries out Yashinon's name, but to her surprise, she sees Yashinon carried by Shido, who then falls to the ground. Shido then says to Yoshino that it is her time to be saved, but that he must kiss her in order to do so, which seemingly upsets Yoshino. Noticing this, Shido takes it back by saying that it was just a joke, but Yoshino stands up and kisses him. Afterwards, Yoshino's astral dress and the blizzard disappear, clearing the sky with a visible rainbow that both Shido and Yoshino see. Back in Fraxinus, Shido introduces Toka to Yoshino. Earlier that day, Kotori is contacted by Shido about going to the hot springs, since Toka and Yoshino wanted to check out one as soon as possible. Kotori agrees to the idea and decides to make arrangements for it. When asked where they should go, Shido suggests the nearby hot springs in the city, Tengu Paradise Hot Springs. At the Camp Tengu military base, Ryuko is being briefed by one of her superiors that a group from DM will be deployed for her team to observe and follow their techniques on how to deal with the spirits. Later at her office, after letting out a fit of anger, she is asked by one of her subordinates about the trip this weekend. After expressing her delight over the vacation, Ryuko is unfortunately given a report about the sudden rise in alert levels due to the frequent appearances of spirits recently, thus resulting in their trip being cancelled, much to Ryuko's frustration toward the spirits. However, Ryuko's subordinate suggests that they go to the local hot springs as an alternative, citing it as their way of showing their gratitude for her. Excited, Ryuko thanks her for the offer. Elsewhere, Origami is with the rest of her group. Ryuko's subordinate from earlier happily reports back to the rest of their squad that their captain has accepted their invitation. Yoshino, Yashinon, and Toka are looking at the view from the window in the car they, Shido and Rain are in. Meanwhile, Ryuko and her squad are taking the deployment train to the hot springs. Suddenly, a cave-in occurs in the tunnels which forces the train to stop due to an emergency shutdown, forcing the group to walk the rest of the way instead. Back with Shido's group, they are also forced to continue on foot after their incident, with Toka begging Shido to forgive her. He reassures Toka that it's fine and tells her that he isn't mad at her. He then cheers Toka up by petting her head. Behind the group, something resembling a pod opens up to reveal AST team. The crew on board Fraxinus spots them, and after a discussion on how to proceed, they decide to launch a preempted attack on the AST before they spot their group and plan. A moment later, the AST are blocked in all of their possible routes, with Fraxinus being the cause. Ryuko orders Origami to take watch from above for any other routes they can take. Origami spots a side road that connects to the main road that they can take, and Ryuko immediately orders her group to march toward it. Shido spots someone familiar from behind a stand and goes to check. To his surprise, he finds Kotori at the store and asks what she is doing there. Kotori just wanted to tag along with them. Despite Kotori denying this, Shido offers to Kotori to just join them at the hot springs, to which Kotori happily accepts. The AST squad members then face a ridiculous amount of non-lethal traps deployed at them by Fraxinus. Ryuko orders her troops to launch their suppression attack and to engage immediately. Having had enough of this, Ryuko retaliates on her own and destroys most of the traps, which annoys Kotori, who was viewing the activities from her location. With Shido and the others, as they peacefully continue walking to the hot springs, he sees a missile dropping and exploding directly near them. With the Fraxinus crew, Mikamoto asks what they should do now. Kotori asks if the AST have opened up a territory yet, to which Nakatsugawa confirms that they haven't. Kotori then gives the crew permission to use destroy mode. The crew then follows the command and has each of their traps simultaneously open fire on the AST, with some squad members being captured but quickly broken free by Ryuko. From afar, Shido sees the mayhem that is occurring. He then continues onward to look for Yashinon through the chaos that Ryuko is causing. Shido is able to find Yashinon, but looks up to see a giant bomb descending down on him. Kotori sees this and immediately orders her crew to stop the attack at once. Origami looks around and sees Shido as the bomb detonates. The Fraxinus crew's transmission is broken off due to the explosion. On the ground, Shido is luckily saved by Toka, who had cast a barrier around them before the bomb exploded. Outside the shield, 3 of Ryuko's troops spot Toka, causing Origami to advance and attack the moment the barrier is lifted. But before she can do so, the shield, along with Shido and Toka, disappear from their sight. Standing on the wreckage of the incident as her troops tiredly comment about this. Shido's group finally reaches the hot springs. Meanwhile, Ryuko and her troops also finally reach the hot springs. As they are about to begin their relaxing time, the water of the hot springs freezes up, which is triggered by Yoshino's reaction to what happened to Yashinon. With the hot springs temporarily unusable, Kotori is suddenly contacted by Kanazuki, who reports that while he was tunneling during his punishment, he was somehow able to dig up a hot springs. Shido, Toka, Yoshino, Yashinon, and Kotori then use the new hot springs Kanazuki dug up instead. As they all relax in it, in what seems to be a destroyed part of the city, Origami is facing off against a young girl wearing a blue and white CR unit. With the rest of her teammates down for the count, Origami engages the girl alone. Later on, Ryuko has the girl introduce herself to her squad. The girl introduces herself as Mana Takamiya, a second lieutenant wizard. Afterwards, Ryuko smacks both Mana and Origami on their heads and asks both why they had to destroy the equipment they were using during a practice match. The two of them simply apologize to her. As Ryuko plays a feat of her and her team's previous battle with Yoshino, Mana and Origami initially talk regarding Ryuko until Origami mentions that the rest have been talking about her and how she has killed a spirit before. Mana then sees Shido in the feed and mysteriously calls him her brother, much to Origami's great surprise upon hearing this. Sometime later, Origami confronts Mana over an explanation regarding her claims of being Shido's other little sister. Mana then asks if he is a friend of Shido's, which causes Origami to immediately announce that they are in a relationship. The new student introduces herself as Kurumi Tokasaki and then immediately announces that she is a spirit, which catches Shido, Origami, and Toka by surprise. As Taimi tells Kurumi to pick her seat. At the Tengu Camp military base, Ryuko and her fellow colleagues have just received reports that a spirit had recently transferred to Raisin High, with Mana adding that this particular spirit is deadlier than the rest, revealing that this spirit has killed over 10,000 people just by herself. Back with Shido, Kotori confirms to Shido that Kurumi is indeed a spirit and tells him to do his best to make her fall for him before the AST arrive and intervene. Kurumi calls Shido and asks if he is ready to show her around. The two then leave the classroom just as Toka and Origami secretly watch. From the classroom, Toka and Origami observe the two, with Toka wondering what Kurumi is planning with Shido. Kurumi then flirts with Shido, which Kotori tells him would be a bad thing for them if he falls for her. Shido and Kurumi then continue on and a new decision appears for the crew to choose from. Kanazuki makes a decision to pick the third option, which is by having Kurumi reveal her panty. However, Kurumi asks Shido if he would like to take a peek, surprising Shido. She adds that she wouldn't mind so long as it was him and she walks up the stairs next to them. Kurumi then reveals to Shido that she knows all about him and knows about his recent dealings with the rest of the spirits, which catches Kotori and Rain's attention. Shido asks her how she knew about him, but Kurumi merely states that it is her secret for now. She adds, however, that ever since she first found out about him, she has had her eyes on him for a long time and had been hoping to finally be alone with him. Toka and Origami reveal themselves falling out of a locker, much to Shido's surprise and Kurumi's amusement. Later after school, Kurumi thanks Shido and Toka for showing her around the school, but whispers to Shido that next time she wishes it would be just the two of them alone. Kurumi is then happily skipping on her way home until she bumps into a man and apologizes. Two more other men come out of an alley nearby, and the man tells Kurumi that she has to do more than apologize before they let her move along. Kurumi then realizes that the three men are planning on sexually assaulting her and plays along with an act of her own. She guides the three to the nearby alley, and suddenly, the three would-be rapists scream in terror as blood splatters on the ground. Suddenly, Mana appears before Kurumi and confronts her. Elsewhere, Shido and Toka have just finished grocery shopping and are on their way home. As they walk, Toka recommends something yummy to eat, with Kotori also agreeing. Just then, both Shido and Toka encounter Mana in front of them, with Mana surprised to finally see one of them. Shido and Toka show Mana the Itsuka house where he currently lives and meets Kotori for the first time. As Shido, Kotori, and Mana sit, Yashinon mentions how Shido and Mana look exactly alike, with Mana expressing how it shouldn't be a surprise since they are related after all. When Kotori asks how she would know that she and Shido are related, Mana shows them a locket containing a picture of her and Shido back when they were still kids. Shido is very shocked to see himself with Mana, while Kotori is in disbelief that the news is all true. After the whole thing, both Kotori and Mana ask Shido who he thinks is the better little sister between them, with Shido dodges quickly and instead asks Mana if she lives alone. Mana answers that she lives with a group of people who she works with and then leaves afterwards. The next day at school, Tammy checks the attendance and receives no response when calling for Kurumi's name. Toka says that she might be late. Later at lunch, Shido goes to the physics room, and when he asks Kotori why he asked him to come, Rain shows him the surveillance footage from yesterday, where he sees Mana confronting Kurumi with origami and the AST nearby. As he continues watching, Kurumi is quickly blasted by Mana, wounding her, and when she tries to get back up to face her, she is once again shot, mortally wounding her and knocking her out. Rain then says that Kurumi was killed by Mana and the AST yesterday, noting that Kurumi should be dead, and Shido confusingly says that it's not possible as she is currently in their class, as they wonder how she is still alive. Meanwhile, Origami confronts Kurumi alone near the school's rooftop and remarks that she should be dead. Kurumi then restrains Origami with her shadow hands, casually remarking at how easily Mana and the AST dealt with her the day before, but she isn't dead anymore. When Origami demands to know what she is going to do to her, Kurumi mentions how fun being at school has been for her, even if that's not the reason she is here. Instead, Shido is her motive for enrolling in their class. Kurumi then threatens Origami to never get in her way toward Shido, maniacally laughing to Origami that she wants Shido all to herself. After class, Shido goes to Kurumi and invites her on a date, which she happily accepts. As she leaves, Shido remembers what he, Kotori, and Rain talked about concerning Kurumi. Origami then confronts him about what he meant by this, having heard what he just said. Despite Origami demanding to be given an explanation, Shido excuses himself and leaves. Origami then remembers her previous confrontation with Kurumi, where she was restrained by Kurumi, who then contemplates if she should devour her. After school, Shido and Toka are on their way back home after buying some groceries. Shido apologizes to her for not showing up at lunch earlier and then asks if she at least had a chance to eat. In the present, Shido and Toka arrive back at the Itsuka household, and as Shido walks to the kitchen to prepare dinner, Toka mysteriously locks the door behind her and closes the curtains as well. In the living room and kitchen, Shido asks Toka if she wants to go home first, but there is no response. Shido goes to ask her again, but there is still no reply. Instead, Toka unbuttons her uniform and crawls on the ground with the tickets in her mouth. Shido, completely confused at the situation, falls back to the coach and asks Toka what she is doing. Not getting an answer, Shido once again asks what is going on. Suddenly, Toka puts the tickets she has in between her cleavage and then asks Shido if he could go on a date with her tomorrow. Then Shido, still confused, accepts and takes the tickets. He then gets a phone call from Origami and is asked on a date with her at Tengu Station at 11 a.m. Before Shido can tell her that he's busy on that day, Origami hangs up, forcing him on a triple date with Kurumi, Toka, and Origami. The next day at Tengu Station, Shido waits for Toka just as Kotori chides him for being triple booked on such an important day. Shido complains that she was the one who told him not to cancel out on both Toka and Origami. After much waiting, Toka arrives, wearing a very cute outfit selected for her by Rain. Shido then compliments Toka on her outfit, and she, though embarrassed, demands that they go now, and Shido follows, asking her if she knows where she is going. Just as they leave, the crew spots Origami, who has arrived an hour earlier than expected. Toka then asks Shido what an aquarium is, so Shido explains to her that it is a place where all different kinds of fish from the sea can be seen. However, Toka immediately thinks the fish are for food until Shido tells her otherwise. As the two reach the aquarium, Kurumi appears at the station 10 minutes earlier than expected, something that Kotori slightly remarks on. Inside the aquarium, Toka is quickly astonished by the sea creatures and asks Shido to come along with her to see more of them ahead. Kotori then contacts Shido to meet Kurumi now, and Fraxinus will pick him up to see her. Shido then fakes having a stomach ache and excuses himself from Toka. Outside, Shido finds a secluded area and is teleported by Fraxinus near the station, where Shido hurries to meet Kurumi. He arrives and apologizes to her for being late. The two head out and find one near the station. Kurumi is amazed by the several fashion brands and goes to pick a couple. She then asks Shido which one would suit her, starting another choice for Fraxinus to choose from. After the choice is made, Kotori instructs Shido to go with the third option, and Shido hesitantly agrees to enact. Kotori then contacts Shido and tells him that he needs to leave quickly to meet Origami, but to not leave Kurumi without complimenting her. Meanwhile, at the Tengu military base, Mana is being attended to by a group of scientists as they work on her wiring suit. Back with Shido, he is able to lose the trio and meet up with Origami at the station, but he still apologizes for being really late. The two stop at a restaurant to eat lunch first. Shido asks Origami why she asked him out on a date all of a sudden, and she responds that she just didn't want him to be by himself, and asks him that after the movie that he comes by her place, and Shido asks why. Origami answers that he should stay at her place for the time being. Back at Fraxinus, Kotori is alerted by her crew of Toka, who has now left the aquarium to look for Shido. At the restaurant again, as Shido and Origami eat, he sees Toka outside running around looking for him, causing him to nearly choke on his food and excuse himself from Origami. Shido returns to Toka, who is relieved to find him as her stomach growls, meaning that she is now hungry. Back with Shido and Toka's date, he feigns another stomachache to excuse himself and is immediately transported to Kurumi. Shido is then surprised to learn from Kurumi that she bought the lingerie she tried out. Later on, Shido yet again excuses himself from Kurumi for a bathroom break, with Kurumi noting how Shido's constant runoffs are a bit of a downer on their date. Meanwhile, while looking for Shido, Toka bumps into Origami and the two immediately bicker at each other yet again. Both of them then proclaim that they are looking for Shido, which causes both sides to be left visibly confused. They start to accuse each other of lying about being on a date with Shido, as both also claim to be on a date with him. At that moment, Origami realizes that Shido could be all by himself right now and runs off to look for him, with Toka following behind her. As Shido kneels down in terror, a familiar voice calls out to him. He looks up and finds Kurumi, who is wearing a different attire, and her left eye is revealed to have a golden clock pattern. Kurumi then summons a bunch of shadowy hands and grabs Shido by his legs, preventing him from escaping. Shido demands Kurumi to let him go, but the latter can only playfully complain about how she had wanted their date to last longer as she walks closer to Shido. Fortunately, Shido has been saved at that moment by Mana, who appears and questions if he is okay. Seeing her weaponized outfit, Shido is left bewildered by Mana's appearance. Directly after the previous episode, Mana asks a bewildered Shido if he is alright. Kurumi then remarks on how Mana rudely interrupted her and Shido's date, whom she opens fire at with heat-seeking laser beams. Kurumi dodges but is eventually struck down, suffering a mortal wound in the process. Distressed over what just happened, Shido asks Mana how she could just easily kill someone and stand there as if nothing happened. In response, Mana corrects him by saying that she merely killed a spirit and that it is her duty to do so. Afterward, Mana comments on how he might have already learned a few things about her from Origami. She then requests Shido to pretend that he didn't see anything and forget what happened, as she states that Kurumi won't stay dead forever, shocking him. Mana adds that no matter how many times Kurumi is killed or how she is killed, the spirit codenamed Nightmare will always come back and continue to kill as many people as possible. As she stands next to Kurumi's mutilated corpse, Mana remembers Shido asking her why, and she says that she doesn't know why before having a minor headache. Then, she hears someone's voice. Back at the station, Toka and Origami are running around looking for Shido until they fortunately spot him walking alone. Toka and Origami ask him what happened, with the former noticing a bruise on Shido's right hand. As he walks back home alone, Shido sees Toka waiting for him and calls her. Toka asks if his hand is feeling okay now. In town, Shido and Toka are at a restaurant, with Shido commenting that he doesn't have enough to cover their meal. However, Toka reveals that Rain lets her borrow her credit card, much to Shido's chagrin. Toka also reveals that Rain told her about what happened with Mana and Kurumi. Shido then asks if she now knows that he has to stop Kurumi from killing more people, saying how she's different from her and Yoshino. Toka interrupts by saying it isn't true, as both she and Kurumi are the same. The next day, Shido is greeted by Kurumi. Mai and me try to interrupt, but they are asked by Toka to leave them alone. Kurumi remarks how she figured he wouldn't have gone to school today because of the incident yesterday, admitting that she is surprised he even bothered to show up. As the day continues, Kurumi is seen on the rooftop of the school, suddenly unleashing her astral dress and using her spirit powers to cover the entire school. Elsewhere, Mana meets up with Kotori and finds out that she and Shido are allied to Ratatosker. Kotori then asks her what she wants, and Mana says that it is about Shido. Mana rebukes Kotori's choice of allowing Shido to go up against the spirits without anything to defend himself, saying that Kotori has failed to be Shido's little sister and that she will take over from now on. Back at school, classes have just ended and Shido prepares himself to face Kurumi. As Shido is about to begin the mission, a sudden dark energy wave surrounds the school, and Shido notices that all the students around him have collapsed. He then asks Rain for a status report as Fraxinus analyzes the situation. Back at the school, Rain tells Shido that a barrier has been projected around the school that debilitates those trapped within. As a voice then calls out to Shido from behind, he turns around to find Toka and asks her if she is okay. Toka tells him that her body feels a bit weak. Meanwhile, Origami, who is also suffering from the barrier, equips her realizer to neutralize the effects and goes to find Kurumi. Shido arrives at the rooftop and is greeted by Kurumi. As Origami runs around the school while requesting backup from Ryuko, she encounters another Kurumi, who asks where she is going. Origami declares that she will protect Shido from her and releases her energy blade to engage her. Back with Toka, she weakly tries to stand up and follow where Shido ran to, but falls to the floor. As she lays on the floor, she refuses to let Shido be in danger and begins to manifest a portion of her astral dress, astonishing her, but is cut short when someone fires a bullet at her which she quickly dodges in time. At the rooftop, Shido asks Kurumi what she is doing, and she explains that the barrier surrounding the school sucks up the time from everyone caught within it. Shido notices her golden clock eye reversing and Kurumi reveals that it is her time or her lifespan. She tells Shido that her angel drains her own time whenever she uses it, but can replenish it by taking away other people's time. Kurumi then steps back and suddenly the spacequake alarms goes off. Kurumi asks Shido if he knows what it means and he realizes what she is doing. Kanazuki and Rain are also alerted of the quake from within Fraxinus. He demands that Kurumi stop the spacequake at once, threatening to jump off the roof and commit suicide if she doesn't comply. Kurumi calls it a bluff, but Shido leans back and allows himself to fall. As he falls, Kurumi immediately comes to his rescue and brings him back to the roof, where she angrily chides him for his foolish attempt. He continues that it does not matter what she has done, saying that nothing will give him a reason not to save her. Not knowing what she will do, Shido then extends his hand to her, and she in turn reaches out her hand to him. But as both their hands are about to meet, a white hand goes through Kurumi's chest, mortally wounding her, with Shido reacting in complete shock. Shido is then met by the real Kurumi, revealing to Shido that she had a clone of hers do this. But she notes that she may have chosen the wrong one. Mana then arrives in time to defend Shido from her. Toka and Origami then arrive and say that they will stop her. Kurumi merely brushes it off as she summons her shadow clones, with Shido asking in abject terror of what is happening. Kurumi then tells him that her clones are a fragment of her past. Kurumi prepares to summon a spacequake onto the school, intending to kill everyone but sparing Shido to make him carry the pain of being responsible for everyone's deaths. Just then, the spacequake is obliterated by an unknown force, much to Kurumi's confusion. A familiar voice then explains that a spacequake can be neutralized by an equal enough force. Continuing where the previous episode left off, Kurumi, her clones and Shido are all staring at Kotori. Shido is in disbelief at realizing that his sister is a spirit as well. Kurumi then resummons her angel, Zafkiel, and prompts Kotori to battle her as she descends down to face Kurumi. Kurumi then summons her angel again and uses the first bullet Aleph again on her clones and on herself. The clones then all appear surrounding Shido, but Kotori quickly pushes him out of the way and the clones overwhelm her instead. Unfazed by this, Kotori breaks herself free using her angel and eliminates all of the clones and injures the original Kurumi as well. As Kotori gets herself ready, she feels a sharp pain in her head, causing Shido to run to her side. Kurumi laughs at Kotori's situation, but the latter then looks back at her in anger and summons her angel's next form, Megiddo, a big cannon formed from camel, and begins to power it up with her flames. Again as Shido tells her this isn't the way to do it, reminding her that Ratatasker's goal is to save and protect the spirits and not kill them, asking her to stop. Shido then notices the look on Kotori's face, realizing she's lost to the fury of herself and her angel. Shido runs in front of Kurumi, intending to shield her from the oncoming attack as Kurumi weakly begs Shido not to do it. As Megiddo is about to fire the shot, Kotori snaps back to herself, but her angel fires at Shido, whom she cries for. His vision transitions to what seems to be the past, with him lying on the ground badly injured. He weakly looks up and sees a younger coterie in her astral dress crying as roaring flames surround her and himself. He has woken up and seems to have recovered, finding himself in bed within Fraxinus Infirmary. Yoshino then leaves after apologizing for disturbing Shido, and he looks around and sees Toka fall asleep beside his bed and then wonders how he got here. Rain then appears and reveals to him that during the battle against Kurumi, he got knocked out and he was brought to Fraxinus to help him recover. Shido says that he doesn't know what happened after the battle, frantically asking about Toka's condition and Kotori's whereabouts. After settling down, Rain tells him that everyone is safe and nobody has died. Shido asks to see Kotori, so Rain takes him to her. Somewhere on board Fraxinus, Rain shows Kotori inside a glass-protected containment room. Kotori asks him how he is doing, so Shido tells her that he is fine as he sits on the opposite side of the table from Kotori. Meanwhile, at Tengu Hospital, Mana is shown to be unconscious from the aftermath of her fight against Kurumi. She adds that she knows she was born a human under the Itsuka family, but somehow around 5 years ago she turned into a spirit, or as she says, a person who possesses the power of a spirit, which shocks Shido and tells Kotori that somehow he knew as well. Kotori asks him how has he never told him anything about this. Confused, Shido asks how she even became a spirit, which Kotori says that even she can't remember how, but knows that something may have happened in the past that caused her to become one. Shido asks her how she can forget, which Kotori fires back at him for also forgetting, just as Toka wakes up and finds Shido is gone and goes looking for him. Toka finds him and asks him if he's okay now, but Shido sadly asks her if they could talk later as he is unsure if he is okay. Later, Rain warns Shido alone about Kotori and her spirit powers returning to her. She tells Shido that in 2 days that he should take Kotori out on a date and do whatever he can in order to seal her powers again. Later that day, Shido heads to Tengu Hospital to visit Mana but is prevented from doing so when the staff inform him that no one is allowed to visit her, even if they are her family. Origami then appears and calls out to Shido, who notices her and asks how she is doing. Assuring him that she is fine, she asks him about Toka, and when he replies that she is okay, Origami gives off a visible growl. Shido decides to leave, but Origami feigns falling down and asks Shido to carry her back to her room. When Shido tries to get her a nurse and a wheelchair, Origami insists that he carries her on his back. Unable to reject, Shido reluctantly carries Origami on his back. As he carries her back, Origami begins to get a bit touchy-feely with Shido, who tries to ask her to stop. After an embarrassing trek, Shido is able to get Origami back to her room, and when he once again decides to leave, Origami asks him to peel her an apple and feed her, despite Shido's protest. Afterwards, Shido then decides to leave finally, but Origami asks him one last thing before he does. She asks Shido to tell her what happened with the fight against Kurumi. Origami describes the new spirit she saw as one that was surrounded in flames which she could manipulate, saying that that was the last thing she saw before passing out and waking up in the hospital, demanding Shido that he tell her every single detail, significant or not. Shido lies to her that he also got knocked out during the fight. After visiting Origami, Shido remembers what Origami said about the tragic incident that killed her parents in Tengu City 5 years ago. As he does, he also recalls what Kotori said about the possibility of hurting someone on the day she became a spirit. At Tengu Hospital, Ryuko visits Origami after having heard that she can be discharged the next day. However, she still advises Origami to take an extra day off. As Ryuko leaves, she tells Origami of some new equipment being brought to their base but warns her on what it might be. Aboard Fraxinus, Shido is called by Rain and Kanazuki, with both advising him to take Kotori to Ocean Park for their date. The next day, Shido brings Toka and Yoshino to a swimsuit store to help them buy their own swimsuits, which is a task that causes Shido to sigh in discomfort. As Toka and Yoshino look around the store, Shido contacts Rain and asks her how buying swimsuits is considered training for him. The owner of the voice is Origami, who says this to both Toka and Yoshino as a deliberate lie. Unsure, Toka asks Shido if he brought her and Yoshino just to make them wear something that can kill them. Origami continues her lie by saying that Shido did plan on it. Shido asks Origami why she is here and asks if her injuries are now okay. Origami answers that she was just passing by, but claims that she came by to talk to Toka. Origami then tells Shido that the only swimwear in her possession is the one from their swim team. Shido suggests that she buy a new one while she is at the store, but Origami points out that it might be difficult without someone else's opinion. Therefore, she asks Shido if he could help her. Toka then challenges Origami to a swimsuit battle, declaring that whoever wins gets to have a date with Shido later on. Both Toka and Origami then begin their swimsuit battle, with both doing their best to make Shido's heart race for themselves.